You know how most people measure their legacies? By the books they write, the battles they win, or maybe even the inventions that they leave behind. Hans Langseth, he measured his legacy in feet, 17 of them to be exact. Imagine a beard so long you could use it as a lasso, so heavy that you need a strategy just to walk to the store, and so unique that it now sits in the Smithsonian Institution alongside the founding documents of the United States. Today, on Beardtory, we're going to explore the man who let his whiskers grow unchecked until he became immortal in hair history. Hans Langseth, the undisputed king of the long beard. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Beardtory. This one, legendary. But just because you have the longest beard in the world doesn't mean that you have the best beard in the world, because we, here on Beardtory, we are going to rank this beard at the end of the episode and see where they rank against all of the beards that we have done. We're going to rank it on fear factor. We're going to rank it on wisdom points. We're going to rank it on intimidation level, thickness and wildness, and historical impact. So if you're ready, let's jump in to the Beardtory. Hans Langseth. Hans Nilsen Langseth was born in 1827 in Eidsvoll, Norway, a country where rugged terrain and harsh weather weren't just inconveniences, they were part of life. Growing up in the 19th century Norway, beards weren't just a fashion statement, they were practical. A man's beard offered warmth against the brutal northern winds, and in a time before razors were cheap or easy to find, many simply let nature take its course. Like many young Norwegians of this time, Hans eventually sought a better life across the Atlantic. Immigration to America in the mid-1800s was no small journey. Families left behind everything they knew for the hope of land, freedom, and opportunity. Hans landed in the United States and eventually settled in North Dakota, a place that was just as harsh, but more promising. Endless prairies, unforgiving winters, and wide-open skies defined his new home. Most immigrants define themselves by how well they could farm the land, raise livestock, and provide for their families. Hans did all that, but he was becoming known for something far stranger. By the time he reached his middle years, locals in North Dakota weren't just talking about his crops, they were talking about his beard. What started as a natural extension of the era's fashion had become an uncontrollable jaw-dropping phenomenon. Because a beard is one thing, a long beard, well, it's another. But a 17-foot, 6-inch beard, well, that is an engineering problem. For Hans, everyday tasks became logistical nightmares. Walking through town meant carefully wrapping his beard so it didn't trail in the dirt. Farming meant making sure it didn't get caught in tools or tangled in crops. He reportedly tied his beard into loops, wrapping it up and pinning it to his chest, or even fastening it around a corn cob to keep it off the ground. Picture that, the full-grown bearded farmer using a corn cob as a beard accessory. Wonder how many corn cobs I could fit in my beard. Nope, not gonna do it. And then cleaning was another challenge. In an era where modern shampoos, conditioners, beard oils, beard balms from Live Bearded, where they weren't around, Hans had to rely on old-fashioned soap, water, and sheer persistence. He had to wash it in sections, letting it dry over hours, if not days. This wasn't self-care. This was beard maintenance as a lifestyle. And of course, the weight. Estimates suggest that the beard weighed several pounds. Imagine carrying a bowling ball attached to your chin every day for decades. This wasn't just a beard. It was a second identity, something Hans literally and figuratively carried with him every way. And then the word started to spread, and he realized that his beard wasn't just a curiosity for the neighbors, it was a ticket to fame. The late 19th and 20th centuries were the golden age of circuses and sideshows. People, they flocked to see human oddities. From bearded ladies to strongmen to snake charmers, Hans became part of this world. He joined traveling shows, proudly displaying his beard as the main attraction. Posters billed him as having the longest beard in the world, and audiences came in droves to gawk at the sight. Children were both fascinated and a little bit horrified. Adults debated if it was even real, and Hans, always practical, just leaned into the attention. This was more than just vanity. Sideshow performers could make good money, and for a farmer in North Dakota, that was no small thing. Hans turned his beard into a business. He wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the tallest, he wasn't the fastest, but he was unquestionably the hairiest. And people, they paid to see it. Hans lived a remarkably long life, reaching the age of 92 before he passed away in 1927. But here's where the story starts to get a little stranger. When he died, his family didn't just bury him with his beard. They cut it off and saved it, because they knew this wasn't just hair. This was history. Years later, the beard was donated to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., where it remains today, coiled like rope, displayed as one of the oddest artifacts in the collection. Hans' beard sits among the treasures of American history. Tourists, they can walk through exhibits on presidents, wars, and space exploration, then turn a corner and be confronted by 17 feet of preserved facial hair. Think about that for a moment. The Gettysburg Address, the Wright brothers playing, and Hans's beard, all sharing space in America's greatest museum. Now that's legacy. For anybody that's here just for the beard rankings, thank you for sticking around, because now is the time. Again, we're going to rank his beard on fear factor, wisdom points, intimidation level, thickness and wildness, and historical impact. Now we're going to show you where it ranks amongst all the beards that we have done so far. First up, fear factor. Hans, let's be honest, wasn't going to strike fear into your heart the way that Blackbeard or even Genghis Khan might. But there's something deeply unsettling about a man dragging 17 feet of beard across the floor at night on a foggy road. I feel like you'd probably run. So for that, not the scariest, but still a little bit scared. 6.9 out of 10. Let's go to wisdom points, because if a long beard equals wisdom, then Hans was practically a prophet. His beard gave him the appearance of someone who probably had all the answers, even if all he really had was a commitment to patience and beard care products before beard care products were a thing. So for wisdom points, 8.2 out of 10. Intimidation level. Didn't, have weapons or armies, but there's an intimidation factor in sheer dedication. This was a man who stared at a mirror for decades and said, "Nope, I'm not cutting you." Trust me, I can relate to this. And that's a little bit of a psychological toughness that few can match. And let's be honest, if you see a 17-foot beard, you're slightly intimidated, especially as another bearded man, you're a little bit jealous. So for intimidation level, 7.5 out of 10. Thickness and wildness, let's be honest, this category, we should just name Hans Langseth, because his beard wasn't just long and unruly and untamed. It was the ultimate display of wildness and natural wonder in its own right. There's pictures of him that's got half a dozen cats just hanging out as if it's a cat house that you buy online. So for thickness and wildness, 9.8, the highest thickness and wildness that we've ever done here on Beardtory. Let's go over to historical impact. There's beards that changed politics. There's beards that have inspired revolutions. And then there's one beard that's in the Smithsonian. Hans didn't reshape nations, but his beard became a permanent part of history, enshrined in glass for future generations. I say it's leaving a pretty good historical impact. 9.1 out of 10. And if my math is mathin', 41.5 out of 50. And this is where Hans ranks against all the other beards that we have done here on Beardtory. And again, just having a long beard doesn't matter. There's 5 different categories. So let us know if we did a pretty good job, a terrible job, or you like this video. We'd appreciate that, because Hans, let's be honest, he isn't remembered for his speeches, his battles, or his books. He's remembered for outgrowing every man in history, for leaving behind a record no one has even come close to touching. And that is the saga of Hans Langseth, the man who let the whiskers run wild until, well, he became a legend of their own. From Norway to North Dakota, from farm fields to circus tents, and finally to the Smithsonian. His beard outlived him and carved its own place in history. Who's next to step up into the Beardtory Hall of Fame? Stick around. The next legendary beard might surprise you. That's all we got. We'll be back next week. Take care, everybody.